So, welcome everyone to this week's Cyber Banter with Fletus Poston. I'm privileged today to have Skyler York with us today to talk about several different things that's on our mind. So, as we talk about week in and week out, there are a lot of topics that we face working in the IT security field, from phishing, social engineering, and some of us even have to deal with technical debt and waste inside of our organization. So, those are just a couple of the topics that we will be talking about. Feel free to put some questions that come up into the chat. We'll be glad to address them as we get into the presentation. But at this time, I would like to introduce you to Skyler York.
Hi, guys. Nice to meet you.
So, Skyler, we talked a little bit prior to this, but tell us a little bit about yourself and where you see yourself in this field and what made you interested in IT security.
Yeah, so my name is Skyler York. Hi. I'm a professional studies major, so that means I'm majoring in two separate things. So I'm in comp sci and I'm also in cybersecurity, which is really exciting. I'm currently working as an IT technician because I'm graduating in May and I wanted to kind of get my boots dirty and kind of see what the field is like. Super excited. I'm eventually wanting to go into cyber analyst positions and eventually go into SOC, I believe, or CISO. I can't really decide yet. I kind of need to feel it out with the whole analyst position, but that's what I'm really looking for right now.
Yeah, it's an exciting field to jump into. And as you said, you're a student. So being a student is just something that I think all of us need to be aware of. For cybersecurity in general, really IT, it's a constant learning. It's a constant battle. So tell us a little bit how you stay abreast and what interests you about this field.
Yeah, so I follow a lot of sites. I've listened to podcasts. I try to learn as much as I can. A lot of it is me learning in an IT setting where I Google a lot of stuff. Surprisingly, a lot of it is just Googling and hoping you find the right answer on Reddit. Not gonna lie. People act like we're these big geniuses because we know how this stuff works, but really you kind of start to see the patterns and you kind of recognize, oh, if this thing's happening, it might have something to do with this broader issue, and you can kind of work your way into the more specifics as you go down. Um, what got me into it, honestly, my story's kind of funny. So in middle school, I started with Hour of Code, which is a Pennsylvania thing. I don't know if they do it down south, actually. If you didn't know, I'm from Pennsylvania. And what it was using these blocks to program a game. So you'd move a game character around a maze or something, or make it do something. And I was like, wow, this is really fun. I want to go into game development. And so I started out in game development. My freshman year of college, I was at a school and I was learning how to make games, but they weren't really teaching me much. And it was kind of more like an art class, which is fine. I love art, don't get me wrong, but I can do that in my free time. And I felt really unsafe going into that field after doing some research. I knew it wasn't for me. I'm not on the art grind as much as I am the knowledge grind. I like the knowledge grind and puzzles much better. So I was kind of lost for about a semester as I was figuring out my freshman year. And then I thought about it. And I was like, I think I want to go into computer science. So I moved to ECU, where I did computer science for a year, found out I loved it. And then my brother came up to App State and I saw the campus and I was like, okay, well, I'm moving now. Like, I've seen this amazing campus and this amazing program. I'm moving. I'm not staying here. Love ECU, though. Don't get me wrong. But I definitely love the mountains and skiing a lot more. And so I found myself up here. And as I went through comp sci, I liked it. It was just it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I like programming, but it's not like my passion. Like, I don't want to do it all the time. And so then I found cybersecurity over the summer as I did an IT internship. And I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. And so I kind of moved more into the cybersecurity field. And that's why I'm kind of here with a comp sci background as well as getting into cybersecurity, which is really exciting because I get best of both worlds in the end.
Yeah, so several nuggets there and some realizations. I didn't realize that we share some common things here. So similar to you, like playing around and seeing kind of how things work. Slightly different. I didn't do game development, but when I got my career, I was always curious why certain things work the way they do. When I was looking to do my undergrad, shameless plug, I'm also an App State grad. I was actually considering an engineering degree. I was considering going down the civil engineering route, and then I looked at comp sci at App. And then I magically found this program called Computer Information Systems, which allowed me to take the business acumen, which I've always had an interest in how businesses run as well, and do IT. So I finished my degree there and then drove into stuff. Second thing, didn't realize, also have a connection to ECU. My sister graduated from there with the nursing program. So it's kind of
Oh,
funny
they
to
have an
see that
amazing nursing program.
they
Oh my
have an
gosh.
amazing nursing program. So my sister graduated from there, and then she's been in the field pretty much for a while now. I won't date my sister just in case she watches. But so we've got some stuff there. And then the other thing that I heard you say, and I applaud this, is you quickly realized certain things weren't for you. So you started in art. Well, art was interesting. You started in comp sci. You realized there was some parts of it, but there was still that itch. So it led you into this professional deployment where it allowed you to dabble in the comp side, which is the logic, and then the computer or the cyber side, which allows you to do a little bit of everything. So I think what I would like to pull out for the rest of us, and we can dive into it, is cybersecurity is a unique field. It's fairly young in comparison to a lot of fields. It was InfoSec, then it was just IT sec, and then it became cyber, then it became cybersecurity, and who knows what they'll name it next. Of the cybersecurity disciplines, which one piques your interest the most, and which one scares you the most?
Oof. I think the one that piques my interest the most is the defense that we have to put up, especially because it includes a lot of like not only deep knowledge of systems, but also predicting the future in ways that aren't normal. You have to really think outside of the box because you never know what threat actors are going to do next. They're always finding new ways to just wreak havoc. And that makes it kind of fun until they're in your system. Don't get me wrong. I think the scariest part, though, is recently I've been doing a lot of research on social engineering because I see it a lot in IT, especially, where people will fall for just a simple link and they'll click it. And it's just their whole worlds are turned upside down. And that's like 90%, I believe, of attacks that do happen are based out of social engineering just because it's so much simpler than just going in and trying to attack a really well-made code base. So I think it's more of like the people aspect that scares me rather than the cyber aspect, which is kind of fun in a terrible way. It makes me sound bad, but I think honestly that's where our biggest weakness lies overall.
Yeah. So for those who followed me for any length of time, and Skyler knows this too, human centric is something that I find a lot of passion into, is getting back to the human. Most of our organizations today, if you go ask your CISO or CSO, what do you spend on the people? They're likely going to give you a blank stare. And if they do give you a line item, it's usually going to be their annual training or their security awareness program. And that's where they're going to stop. If you're lucky, they may pull in what they spend on the endpoint that they're issuing, either their Mac, their Linux, and what security tools they deploy. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to training and awareness. So with that, you mentioned social engineering. What are some tips, tricks, or ideas that you've learned so far in your degree and working as an IT professional that you think people should be aware of when it comes to social engineering?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, sorry about my cat, by the way, she really likes the attention. Whenever I'm doing something, she's always up in here. I think the biggest thing that I've realized is that you just, no matter how many training sessions you put people through, no matter how many times you sit down and you explain it and you just emphasize the importance, there's always going to be people that just don't care because it hasn't happened to them yet. And the minute it happens to them, then they'll care. But it's always at a point where it's so detrimental that it's just, you know, I have a lot of people in my IT that come in with their computers hacked, and in different ways. It could be a remote agent, it could be simple malware, it could be, I've seen a Trojan or two before. I've yet to see ransomware, thank goodness. Those are tough, I've heard. And just a lot of the time, it's just simple etiquette that people just haven't ever learned or haven't bothered to learn is what really is just the biggest part. Some tips and tricks are, don't trust anything that sounds too good to be true. As a kid, I fell for it a couple times. I'm not going to lie. Oh, free iPhone? Wow. 12-year-old me would love a free iPhone. Absolutely. And then my dad's phone is infected and, you know, I'm in trouble now because I clicked a link that I shouldn't have. And so it's more like, don't trust what you see. It's a very good thing that I've started learning as I learn my Security Plus, because I want to get that soon. I'm hoping April, by the way, is to verify first and then go after it. You can't just take a risk and click on whatever you want. That's a really big tip. A lot of the time, too, is if you don't know who's sending it and you aren't expecting a message from somebody, it's safer to not respond and to not open it, in my opinion. Especially like with spam phone calls. Like if you get a call from an out-of-state number, are you really going to answer it? Like I don't personally. I know some people will, but I just don't do that because it just opens me up to whatever's going on. With AI progressing as fast as it is, with voice mimicry and all these other scams that are going on that are scarier than just a normal phishing attempt, it's just something that isn't worth it to me. So I think the biggest thing is to just know enough to know not to just click good stuff, because it's not good. It came out terribly, that last part. Just don't trust it. If it seems too good to be true, it is. It absolutely is. So just don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. And I think the important part of that, and you were alluding to it, and I'll add a little bit to it, is we have to let our family, our friends, our coworkers know it's okay to slow down. It's now 2025. We feel like we have to run 100 mile an hour, no matter if it's only 10 steps. We feel like we need to sprint versus just jogging, and remembering cybersecurity and security in general is a marathon, not a sprint. So you got to take baby steps, and you got to realize. So letting your end users know, your family know, that it's okay to stop and assess. So some tips is put your hands behind your back and count to 10. We've all heard it, like when we brush your teeth, sing a song, a lyric, then stop, assess, and click or answer the question. Because to your point, we're all enticed by curiosity. Hey, free phone, free gift card, free car, free trip. And we don't think about the ramifications of doing that. So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we have to be comfortable saying thank you, but no thank you, and asking follow up questions. So you mentioned again the deep fakes and the voice simulation stuff. That's something I will advise all of us when it comes to social engineering. There are still companies out there that will take your voice as an authenticator. That scares me a little bit in the essence of social engineering. We've been on this call now for about 12 minutes. There's 12 minutes of content between you and I that someone could scrape right now to train a model and to potentially bypass the authentication that we've set up to verify it's Fletus or it's Skyler. So on that note, you mentioned a little bit earlier, but tell me more. Have you been bitten by the social engine bug? Have you given away something, and what did that look like?
So actually, I have a really good example. It happened today at work. There was a call from California, and we answer every call because we're a business, and we don't know if people have an out-of-state phone number. For example, I do. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I still have a 717 number. So we always answer just in case someone's in the area. They're visiting. We pick it up, and it's just beeps. That's not a good sign, because that means that this was a test. Someone was test calling us, and after we had answered the first one, we kept getting call after call from different, and we were like, oh, this is not good. So it wasn't really like a cell phone, so they really didn't get much out of us. But we don't know what they were trying to do. We don't know if they were taking our voices, seeing what we were. If they were seeing if this line was just active, and they kept testing it to see how long it would take us to just. Thankfully, it was in the last hour of work. We only had to deal with about 6 calls before we went home. So the rest of the calls would go straight to voicemail, which is nice. So it's a little revenge, but that's still in the works right now. As well as last year, my sister had answered, and they were asking for a code, expecting this call. Sometimes you get lucky with a spam call, and she gave them the passcode, and they were in her bank account. So it happens like extremely. It's extremely easy stuff, just by accident, because it happens to be the wrong place, wrong time. But other than that, I mean, it's happened, and usually it's like you're able to fix it. But sometimes it's a bit.
Yeah, so common thing there is, just to recap some lessons learned out of that one, similar experience. The one-time codes, also known as OTPs, that are sent to your text messages or your emails, generally, if you read them closely, the scammer's done a forget password, or they've sent a code to you. So if you read what the text says, or if you read the email, you'll see that what they did is they've got your email from a data leak, a breach of some type. They put it in, they click the link, says forgot password. What that does is it sends you a one-time code, an OTP, to put into the website to do a password reset. So most of the times, if you just stop, again, like I advised earlier, and read the full contents of the text or the email, you'll see that this isn't an authentication code. This is a reset code. And what they're trying to do is access your account and compromise it. So thinking about that before, instead of just accepting the phone call, hang up, call the number on the back of your credit card, call the number that's on file for the vendor that you're working with, and ask them at that point to authenticate you, because you initiated the call. So long as you're calling a valid known number that's on the back of your credit card, on the actual publicly facing site, unless they've been spoofed and compromised and defaced, you're likely calling the business. And even then, you can ask authenticating questions to confirm you're done with the business. And when in doubt, hang up, call back again. And eventually, if your call has been spoofed, you're likely going to find the right person. And to be honest, similar story, I got a text a couple years ago, did what I talked about. I called, hey, I said I got a fraudulent charge. I need to confirm it. Can you confirm the fraudulent charge? They're like, we didn't call you. You don't have a fraudulent charge. But because I followed those steps of, great, I was in the middle of, luckily for them, and I probably would have fell for it. I was in the middle of something. So I saw the text. I was like, okay, I'll just do this when I finish the call. It gave me time to not be in the heat of the moment and feel like, oh, I have a $2,000 charge for this. I didn't do that because I was busy. And I didn't just
fear is
immediately
such a
act.
big
I waited until I was not busy.
Fear is just such a big motivator. It's incredible how fast people just respond to it. And that's a lot of these scams have to do with fear. I mean, and that's a really human thing. And you can tell that these are made by humans and not just normal AI. I mean, they might be made by AI now at least, but it's definitely always been a very fear motivated thing made by humans. And it's a human weakness of ours. And it's one of mine too. I mean, I'm one person who, if I get a text, like recently I got a text saying that I had an unpaid ticket. I was like, oh my gosh, no, surely not. And then I thought about it for a little longer. I was like, no, what? They would call me, or there would be like mail or something else. Or it would give me another one is like, look for those specific details, like your name, date of birth, like what you expect to like, that they would have on you. If you get a message that doesn't have specifics about yourself, don't trust it ever, because it's just not worth it. And you know at that point that it's not real. These people are just fishing for as many people as possible, and they're not being very specific towards you as a person.
Yeah, that's the opportunistic attack. I mean, she's referring to, or Skyler's saying right now, this is that toll scam that everyone saw for the last couple of weeks. Is you have an unpaid toll. If you look at it real closely, if it's a text, it's probably from a live or a Hotmail account. It's not even from like a legitimate NCDOT or Tennessee DOT or Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. It's from an email address. And even then, it says, dear, thank you. It uses what's the word I'm looking for? Commercial or professional language. It's trying to use endearment and use it, sensational words to get you to pay attention, which they're never going to do. Like, this is a professional business. They're not going to say dear. They're not going to say thank you and stuff like that in a text. They're just going to give you the factual information, give you a link, give you a phone number to call. And if you pay attention to the link, and I'll food for thought just for you, pay attention to where the period is. For those who don't know, the domain is at the end. And if they put all this stuff in between, you may see .com, but then at the end of it, it's .ru. Well, the top level domain
that's a really
is
good
Russia.
point.
So pay attention to the last dot and what's behind it to get the top level domain to see where they're actually pointing you to. They may try to spoof it, and only your eyes are trained to read the first amount of characters. And when you see that period or the dot, you may stop, finish reading to the far right, and see what domain it's sending to. It may be .xyz or whatever I said. I already mentioned Russia, not to pick on Russia, but pay attention where it's coming from. North Carolina DOT, where I'm based out of, is not going to send me a Russian URL to pay a toll ticket. So again, think before you act and just slow down. And again, when in doubt, call the 800 number assigned to the organization which is reaching out to you and find out what's going on. So good points there. So another thing that I think you may have a little bit of experience with and you may not, so be curious to see. In your limited experience in your IT role, what kind of IT waste or tech debt have you run into, and how has it impacted you in your career so far?
Yeah, so waste is a huge part of what I really stand against it. It really kind of bothers me. I'm very environmentally conscious. I know you can't control everything, but there's always ways to do better. And I think that right now there are definitely more ways to do better. Being an IT technician, we do a lot of hardware repair. The problem with that is a lot of our laptops that we get in are irreparable because we don't do soldering. Now, should we learn it? Sure. I would love to learn soldering, but at the end of the day, it takes a lot of time, a lot of equipment, and a lot of training to do it correctly. It's a very, very specialized thing. And a lot of motherboards today in the newer laptops everything is soldered. You can't add anything to it. You can't replace anything really to it. It's all just one big block of incredible technology, by the way. I'm not dissing the technology. It's amazing. But the way that it's put together is so unsustainable. It's just incredibly, they want you to break it and to buy a new one. It's sad to say that because I wish that it wasn't like that, but it absolutely is. I have many, many people who spend good money on good equipment and they bring it in, and because of one thing, short circuiting, maybe a power surge, especially with the hurricane that hit recently, water damage especially, there's nothing we can do. And these people don't have the money to buy new stuff. And I think it's just not very ethical, and it's not environmentally conscious either. And it really kind of drives me up the wall just a little bit. Because I care, and I want people to be happy, and I want people to be able to afford things. And, I understand broke college student, it's tough out there. I mean, it's really tough to be told your $800 laptop is irreplaceable and you don't have the money for it, like we can't fix it, and you have to buy a whole new one that's going to cost you just as much or more that you paid just a year ago for this new one. It's sad, and it's just really tough to kind of go through and see just how fragile everything is in the sense of just how it's built. It's just not great. It kind of makes me a little angry just a little bit.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we don't think about sometimes is the sustainability of certain things we do. So I'm going to pivot a little bit and didn't talk about this with you. So curious to see what your thoughts are. More and more of practitioners, just individuals in general, are learning about generative AI. The economics impact of generative AI, for those who haven't looked, there's a lot of carbon waste in these data farms that's processing these small and large language models. So the more and more that we lean on generative AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Olama, etc., there's environmental concerns similar to what those that you see with modern technology, with battery technology, electric cars. It may feel greener up front, but we don't know the long-term impact. So from your point of view, not to pick too much on the sustainability side, where do you think cyber IT and just the normal mom, dad, neighbor is going to find value and the risk of using generative AI in the next 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah, I kind of think at the stage we're at now, generative AI is kind of at the stage of like early automobiles. Like the early versions are really, they do a lot of pollution. People didn't realize how much damage they were doing. And over time, we learned really, really fast, actually, we need to do this to help protect our environment. We need to do this to help protect our people as well. AI has a lot of loopholes around legality, especially. I love anything that has to do with legal as well. It's just so much fun. Sorry. Anyway, little tangent. Go on. It's just super important to realize that we're in the early stages of a huge change. But the problem is we need to approach it in the sense of this is a big change. We should be ahead of the game rather than like we're just going to roll with it like they did back in the day. That's not, we're ahead of that. We have evolved, quote unquote, as people. Technology has grown incredibly fast. We should be growing with it as well. And I think we really need to take a stance of we're in the early stages. This is when we can really put down the bricks to get it into place, into a better spot than to just wait for it to kind of implode and have a bigger issue later. There's a lot of risks security wise, and just overall, especially, it's just, I think I read like a website or something, like an article that said each line of code creates a couple, how many whatevers of CO2, and it was just terrible. Like driving a car for an hour, I believe. Don't quote me on it. I don't have it in front of me. But I know that if you put it to that and you kind of show it to people of like, if you drive your car this much, it's the same as doing a single question to ChatGPT. I think people will kind of get the idea better. And I'm not saying to stop using it. I think that it's definitely the future. I think that it's definitely something we should look into, but I think we should look at it more as a tool rather than the savior that some people are painting it as. I don't see it as a savior. I think that humans still need to have full control because we're the only ones that have the ethics. We have to program the ethics, and that's not a very good stance for an AI model that just kind of copies what you tell it to.
Yeah, to your point, I like the analogy of the automobile. I'm going to take it from a slightly different angle. Those who first interacted with generative AI when ChatGPT came out would have noticed a lot of the biases that first came out. If you ask questions like, please describe a software engineer in a Fortune 100 company in 2021, 2022, you're likely to get a predominantly white-haired male Caucasian description. You ask the same prompt in 2024, you're going to get a much diverse answer because the biases the hallucinations, the temperature changes have been applied. So your evolution is a great analogy here of what it looked like. The same is with prompt engineering, content engineering, and most companies today are putting more safeguards into it. So I expect in the next, to answer the question I asked you, 3 to 5 years, you're going to see more safeguards, data grounding, data anonymization, data cleanup, and you're going to see more activities on how do we test this, both internal and external, in your annual assessments. Because right now we run compliance checks, we run pen tests, now we're going to run AI test. How does your chatbot, for those who paid attention, chatbots in the future, they used to just be ML, machine learning. I sold you a ticket for $1, sold you a car for $1. Bad logic. Doesn't happen anymore. Same goes with generative AI. I like your analogy again. I use something very similar. It's a tool, not the toolbox. AI is going to continue to be a tool that everyone uses, and AI is not going to replace us. It's going to replace the people not using it. Similar to what the laptop was like when you had the ability to pick up your computer and walk away versus being tied to a desktop. Very similar analogy that plays out. It's how we use it, where we use it, and evolving with it, not allowing it to evolve without us. So I think that's a great point of view. So I want to change the topic just a little bit because I want to pull the string a little bit about the student aspect. So we've talked a little bit. You've shared some of that. So I want to pull back. Tell me a little bit about more why, other than your brother, that you came to App State, and what has App State done for you in your undergrad experience?
Yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest. When I first got here, I kind of expected it to be kind of like high school. They just not a lot of help. You kind of are left on your own. Um, I'm a very, I'm always on a grind. I'm always working because I want to and I have to at the same time. You know, it's a good mix. I think that it's healthy to an extent. And I was ready to kind of just be thrown to the wolves because I didn't see a lot of help from my first college, or I wasn't at my second college long enough. I just couldn't find where I wanted to be, and so I kind of walked in here thinking I'm gonna stay, but you know I don't know what to expect from it. Um, and I got here, and I'm gonna be very honest, it was life changing at this point. The amount of people who care enough to help me is incredible. I try not to get emotional because it means a lot. I never thought of myself as worthy of the help because I thought I always had to earn it. And you know, you and the other mentors of this program that I have been incredible, and you've been so supportive. And I can't even tell you how thankful I am. I have gotten an immense amount of insight into what it's like outside of school because school is nothing like work. I can tell you that now. If anyone's watching this who is in school and is like, oh, it's going to be just like school, it's not. It's completely different, and you need to be ready for it. And I didn't know that until recently. And I've had a lot of help sort of making my way into the corporate world outside of school instead of just being kind of smacked with a brick wall as soon as I leave, which is what I was afraid of. And I mean, the amount of, they have a lot of free stuff you can do to kind of build your portfolio and to kind of get your hands dirty. If it's really what you want to do, they have it. I mean, recently we had the Cyber Summit where I got to see some amazing people talk about their experiences. And I also want people to know you don't have to come from a tech family to be successful. I mean, a lot of these speakers were people who just stumbled into it, like me. I didn't have a laptop until college. I'm gonna be so honest. I was way behind the curve, completely. And you know, it was really exciting to see that there were people that weren't these just tech geniuses that the media likes to paint tech as. Like, oh, you've always been tech savvy. I can promise you I was not. I didn't know how to make a file on the desktop to start. And so it's been incredible. I get a lot of really good hands-on experiences in the cybersecurity field. We use Siren a lot, which is hands-on CTFs, like capture the flags, or it's a lot of, you can use Metasploit, you can use Nmap, a lot of that good stuff. I've had hands-on experience with Linux, never touched Linux before until about a year ago when I decided to, hey, you know, why not? And just different operating systems. They have a full-blown network room, which I got to test out once. I'm hoping to go back and do it a couple more times before I leave. And it's been incredible the amount of support that we have at App State. I can't say for other colleges, I wasn't there long enough, but I can tell you that it's definitely a different vibe here. It's a lot better. I feel a lot more safe and secure and excited. I mean, I'm excited to move forward, you know?
So first off, appreciate the kind words. We as practitioners, for those who are listening, and even if not, InfoSec, cybersecurity is a very small field globally. So it's my pleasure and others to give back to the next generation. So for those who followed me, have interacted with me, watched any of my channels, you'll see that mentorship is something that I do because I care, not because I have to. And I tell, and to be frank, she mentioned, or Sky mentioned already here, I found Skyler less than a year ago, and we've hit it off. We figured out ways to do this, and we've been able to do leaps and bounds in just that short time because I didn't try to build a clone. So I'll tell anyone who's in a mentor-mentee relationship, you're there to add value and also get value. So reverse mentorship goes a long way. There are things that Skyler has taught me just from listening, and I'm going to ask her about one of those here in a second. She'll be prepared to talk about this in a little bit because it's related to a webinar series that we started with Upstate. And the fact that Skyler has been willing and able to do something out of their comfort zone shows why mentorship is key. So for those who are listening again, find a mentor and be a mentor and be a mentee as well. No matter if you've been in the field 1 day or 30 years, you have a diverse background. Skyler's already admitted. You could come up in a family that's never touched tech, or you can be one who's had a phone at 3 years old. That is the new generation we live in. It doesn't matter where you're at on the gamut. You have a diverse lifestyle, background, and life experiences that adds value to any situation. So with that, tell me what your thoughts are on a webinar series and what the webinar series is all about.
Yeah. So for those who know me personally, I laugh a lot. All right. It doesn't matter if I'm anxious or not. And so I've had to learn to kind of like not do it as much because I just like doing it. See, there it is. I can't escape. Anyways, we won't talk about it. I've also had very, very intense social anxiety since I was a kid. I will admit. I have been a wreck for a while until recently because I've been able to sort of come out of my shell in a very safe environment that isn't judgmental, and it's more just there to help me rather than to critique me. So this webinar isn't really, thankfully, it's not like a school presentation where you get judged immensely on your posture and the way that you speak in a way that you get a grade from it. Instead, it's given to us in a way of like, here are some good ideas for getting better. This is where your strengths are. This is where your weaknesses are. And we're going to practice and we're going to go through it. And I'm going to give you recommendations on how the corporate world handles this as well. It's not just a school setting where anything can fly depending on the professor. It's more of, what's the word? Professional. It's a lot more professional experience that I've never had before. It's been a little tough just because I work so much so often, but it's definitely one of my passions is to do this webinar because I think it really helps me public speaking wise. And it helps me sort of learn extra material too. Like I feel all the time like I'm just shoving stuff into my brain as I learn, which is exciting, but it can be really exhausting when you don't have an outlet to kind of share with people. And it gives me that the passion and the excitement to be like, guys, look what I've found out. Here are my cool slides that I've made, and to kind of just get to share my studies rather than just internalizing all of them and feeling like, oh, I don't feel like I'm doing much with it, even though you are. It's a weird balance in school, but here in this webinar, I feel like I really get like a chance to just let it out and to show that I am really passionate and I'm really excited about different things. And I think it's really important for people to have that because it's just, you don't get that in normal school. And that's not the school's fault. I mean, they have so much to teach you already. It's more of like a mentor thing. I mean, it's impressive what you guys have done. I mean, I'm so excited and I'm hoping to be a mentor as soon as I graduate, or a little after I kind of get settled, because I want to help people just like I'm being helped. I think that everybody deserves a shoulder to lean on to get into the industry. I don't think anybody should have to pick themselves up by their bootstraps alone. They should have people there to be cheering you on as you do it.
Yeah. So again, a little more backstory, shameless plug, App State here. We decided beginning of this semester to offer select students, those who volunteer and were handpicked, to do 4 rounds. Each round was about a 15 to 20 minute presentation on a topic that was related or adjacent to cybersecurity. So Skyler and her peers have picked topics. They've gone through round 2. Round 3 is in progress right now. I believe Skyler will do hers next week. We started round 3 today. I had my mentees do theirs. So it's rewarding. And for those who watched another Cyber Live, I came on here right after one, hyped and ready because it rejuvenated me to see the next generation grasp a topic and teach me something. Even if it's just how to give constructive feedback, a topic I haven't thought about or I've been adjacent to and learned about. So giving public speaking engagement. So many people have heard Toastmasters. What we've emulated with this is we give them a Zoom session to speak on about 7 to 8 slides for 15 minutes. And then we give them positive, constructive feedback. We're not there to beat them down, but we're giving them constructive feedback that you would get from a live audience. We brought in industry professionals outside of us to also allow them to share their resume, their LinkedIn profiles. So we're helping them build a network and a brand. So for those who are listening, consider building something like this in your own community with your B-sides, with your ISSA, which I'm going to ask Skyler about here in a second, or other community-based events. Mentorship and activities like this can be done anywhere. I recently picked up another one with ISC2. I'm giving back in that community. I sit on my local Charlotte ISSA chapter, so I'm going to ask Skyler about her experience with ISA here in a second. Get in these communities and propose it with that leadership team. Could we do something like this here, where you set up lightning talks at the beginning of each meeting to allow a first-time speaker to present? Can we do a web series or a webinar outside of it? It doesn't just have to be in the four walls of a university or community college. So think about that as you're helping give back and what you're looking to do. So with that, Skyler, I know you're active and you're getting more active. What has ISSA Raleigh meant to you, and what do you hope to gain from that community experience?
Yeah, so my first ever mentor I met about a year and a half ago from a buddy's dad who was in the tech industry. And he had given me this contact and said, this is someone you should talk to. You should start networking now, which, by the way, please network. It's so worth it. It's going to save your skin and it's going to save you so much stress. And you get to meet awesome people is number one for me, is I get to meet amazing people. And so I reached out to this contact. And they were like, yeah, I helped to run the Raleigh ISSA. I met Mr. Rob Martin. He's incredible. He has a bunch of these projects that he manages where he brings people and not only just like professionals together, but those looking to get into the industry together. And they have meetings and they have like teaching sessions as well. And they just help you learn and get into the industry. And they've helped countless people. It doesn't matter your age, where you come from. They've helped countless people get jobs in the industry and to start out. And he has been incredible. Love him. I'm going to probably send him this video as soon as we're done. Be like, hey, Rob, guess what I did? I love him so much, just like I love you guys so much. And it's been an amazing experience. He invited me to InfoSecCon Raleigh over the summer-ish. Yeah, over the summer. And it was incredible. I got to see some amazing people stand up and speak. I got to speak to a bunch of different stands that just had different people offering different cybersecurity tools. I took countless notes and I studied for days after. It's so important to get out there and to see the real world and how it functions, because I was stuck in this bubble of I'm this age and I'm with these age people and I know nothing else. I only know my age. And so it's not a great thing to go out into the real world where people of all ages you're going to be working with. This isn't just like tech isn't a young person thing. Some people like to paint it as a very young person. It's really not. There's a lot of veterans who are in here. There are a lot of people from different walks of life, people who have not started in IT. So don't ever feel like it's too late to get in or to start networking. It absolutely is never too late. You can absolutely do it. And it's just really important to kind of see the backgrounds of these people and to learn from their mistakes and their wins. It's important too for me to share mine because I'm super excited about what I've done. And I'm really confident where I'm at because of these people, because I've met these people and I've had people to fall back on. So if you're looking to join a group, the ISSAs are incredible people. They do some incredible things and they're always there to help. I've never seen an incentive of anything other than we want to see you succeed. And that's exciting because usually you don't see that in the world where it's like, we want to give you this, but we expect something. That's not what this is. This is we give and we want to see you succeed. And then you, if you want, come back and help us. And that's really exciting to me personally.
Yeah, I can echo so much of that again. Network, network, network. And to be honest, let me caveat that a little bit. Don't just go into a relationship to see what you can get. Skyler is a great example. They continue to ask questions and offer feedback, not just take. Skyler has been someone who's absorbed information and questioned information at the same time. So when you are networking, be humble, but be curious. It's okay to ask questions. I will tell anyone the only stupid question is the question not asked. because an assumption is something that I'm going to go on a tangent for a moment. We as industry professionals have an issue with cursive knowledge. We don't know how to be a novice again. So I challenge every single one listening to here, no matter, again, if you've done the job for 2 months or 40 years, you don't know how to not know something again. So ask your mentee. I'm going to ask in a second. What is something you wish you knew that you know now that you knew on day one? It helps you become the novice again. So with that, Skyler, tell me something that you've been in the program now, you've been working for several months. What is one thing or a couple of things you wish you knew then that you know now?
Oh man, there's so many to choose from. I think my biggest one has to do with my own weakness, which is social anxiety. I've always thought that people weren't going to want to help me, and so I never asked for help. And so I'd always kind of pretend like I knew what I was doing. I'd kind of look stupid while doing it because I didn't know what I was doing, and what I turned in wasn't didn't make sense. But the minute I really kind of like took a deep breath and was like, I want to surround myself with people like myself. And you know what? If I run into people who don't want to help me, they're not people I want to surround myself with. And I'm going to find the people who are like me and want to help and want to learn and want to just be themselves and have fun in this industry. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to just kind of stand up for yourself and be like, I want this thing, and I'm going to surround myself with the people that I like and that are mirroring what I want. And I get to learn so much. And I would never be here if I hadn't thought to myself, if somebody is mean, I'm just going to ignore them and move on. I took everything to heart so bad. And as I've grown into this industry, I don't think I've met a single mean person in this industry. I'm going to be so honest. I mean, maybe I'm just really lucky. Don't get me wrong. It could be that. But I mean, even in my internship searches, I was terrified to go into IT. I was an IT technician intern over the summer. I was horrified because I was like, I am not smart enough for this. I don't know what's going on. All I have are my studies. And I walked in and they went, shut up. You are absolutely smart enough for this, and you need to know that you're smart enough for this. And I've gotten that ever since I started talking to people. I mean, even in my IT technician position now, it's such a big term. And sometimes I'm like, do I really deserve this? And I'd look at my coworkers and they're like, shut up. You do. You worked hard. You worked incredibly hard. And I give them the same energy back. I mean, the minute they start questioning themselves, I get upset. I'm like, no. We're not doing that. It's just, I think that's one of the things is I wish that I was more open with people to start. And I wish I was more confident with myself is definitely the biggest one.
So I want, and I love that energy right there. Imposter syndrome hits every single one of us. I've been in this field almost 20 years now. There are days I'm like, I don't deserve to be here. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough anymore. I should know this. I've done this. I should be aware. When that happens, again, go back to your network, go back to your mentor, go back to your mentee and say, I just need to chat or let's talk. And if you're like me, and Skyler knows this, I find more value in the light bulb coming on for Skyler and the others than I do for the light bulb coming on for me. Because I realize at some point I may stop working. I'm not going to say I will. And someone else needs to do my job. So to her point, or Skyler's point there, we have to be comfortable sharing knowledge. And I'm glad Skyler's had the experience of people not being knowledge hawks, because I've worked in the field long enough. There have been people who are, I'm the SME and I need to stay the SME because if I don't keep the SME title, I don't have a job. My ultimate goal is for you to replace me, because if you can replace me, I can move up or I can move on. If you can't replace me, I've just pigeonholed myself. I'm stuck. I can't change the job because they're not going to promote me because you're the only person who knows how to do this, or you're too valuable. It's a term you may hear, or we can't stand to lose your knowledge. Well, document it. Build a knowledge base article. Build KT. Do KT. Document. Do stuff like this where you stream it out and it's recorded and people can watch it later and critique and say, that was a great point. Because that's the next thing. I can teach technical skills. I can't teach curiosity. I can't teach inquisitiveness, critical thinking, outside the box. Can I coach you through it? Yes. Have I coached people through it? Yes. But that's a lot of work for that person if they're always being coached versus I woke up today and I'm just curious why this alarm clock is red. What does the inside of it look like? Oh, I'm going to take it apart. Sorry, Dad, I can't put it back together again. You need to go buy.
I've done that so many times. Oh my gosh, I'm sure my parents just were giving up on me. I swear, I was cutting things apart as a kid, and I could not put them back together.
It's always that analogy. It's like, why do I have 3 extra screws? 9 came out. I only put 6 back in. Where's the other 3? No, I'm just. But on that note, we've been at this for about 45 minutes now, and we've covered several key things. We've talked about colleges. We've talked about IT. We've talked about inquisitiveness. We've talked about webinar series, mentoring. We've talked about networking. We've talked about imposter syndrome. So, of those topics, I'd love for people who are watching, feel free to ask us a question I put in there. Also, I've dropped Skyler's LinkedIn a couple times. Please subscribe. Please follow and connect. Skyler has a lot to learn, but she also has a lot to give. They are interested in giving back. So with that, Skyler, what would you like to ask me, or what would you like to part knowledge as we're coming to start to wrap this up? What do you have for me, or what do you want to share with the audience?
Well, for knowledge nuggets, definitely just keep at it. It's a hill that you got to climb, and it feels never ending. I promise it's probably not in this industry. I'll be so honest. It's always, you're learning something new every day, but make sure you're excited about that. Don't do something that you aren't excited about. And I'm not saying like you have to absolutely love your position, but at least make it interesting to you. Make sure that that's at least something that you have, because it will stick with you the entire time you're here, in tech at least. For you, I mean, I want to hear what you wish you knew when you started, because you have a lot more experience than I do, and I want to know what I should probably look into if I'm expected to to know it later on.
Sure. So with that, my career was interesting. I had the pleasure, similar to what Skyler was talking about. The lecturer at the time who was teaching the managing security classes happened to give me a part-time job. So I got to do intrusion detection handling during that time frame. So that allowed me to touch an appliance. That allows me to see what users will do on a corporate system. I was 21 at the time. I was still young and naive to what actually happens inside of a corporate world. So there was users who would surf things they shouldn't, go to sites we would block because we were an intrusion detection tool. We didn't actually block, we just detected. I just wanted to make sure that I knew what was going on. So then I went into a financial institute as an intern. My internship, quickly, no offense to my finance buddies, I don't want to work for a bank. I didn't like having 3 different bosses, all with priority ones. And I was only an intern. I've since considered going back to a bank. For those who are watching, I will join you if that's the job, if it's the needs for the gaps of us. But I learned quickly that wasn't was. Sadly, I went to a regulated utility after that. It wasn't much different. Regulations are just slightly different. Instead of looking at SOX, I was looking at NERCs. SIP, I was looking at CERC, FERC, all these federal organizations, still laid back into that. But my time at the regulated utility is probably what helped me the most. My first job out of college with them, I did IT service management. I had the pleasure within the first 3 to 6 months to run our change advisory board, which meant the CISO, the CIO, their direct reports were all at the table listening to me. I was running a meeting with manager and executives weekly, telling them or asking them to tell me why they were doing the change, and then running compliance reports and telling executives, again, they're out of compliance. I'm 21, 22 years old, working for a Fortune 150 company. No one could have told me that when I was in college. The next that I wish I would have known is my team threatened to hang me from the tie. I showed up in a tie for my first day of work. They said, hey, you wear that again, I'm going to hang you from it. So I think they were joking, but I didn't wear a tie to my second day on the job. Because at the time, this was in 2008, 2009, business casual still meant shirt and tie. Business casual in 2025 isn't shirt and tie for a male anymore. It's more of a smart casual where you're in a collared shirt and some kind of dark pants, jeans, khakis, pants, whatever. So just understanding that piece would have been something nice to know before showing up. Other things, be willing to move. I spent 13 years at that regulated utility. Let me sit down. 13 years.
Wow.
But at the time,
That's crazy.
I still had people who'd been there for 30, 40 years. That's not the industry we work anymore. For those who are looking to get into work, Skyler included, 2 to 3 years is an acceptable time period in a job. And if you change jobs, maybe 5 years at a company is going to be seen fine. There are others who hop every 6 to 12 months. I will allude that that's probably not enough time to really learn and understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. But be careful how long you stay somewhere and how short you stay somewhere. So that's another feedback that people should have told me earlier. I had planned to stay 5 to 7. I stayed 13. I'm in a job now where I'm approaching 3 years. I've had a lot of experience in this 3-year role running a security department for a backup company and recovery company. It's been a great experience for me. No one told me, to Skyler's point, what my opportunities were. And it wasn't until I found out that I had a circle who cared, who pushed me to do opportunities. So again, great question. If you want to know more about my path, watch some of my videos, hit me up. Happy to share more of that. On that note, I'm going to transition over to a slide. Skyler's aware of this. I like posing questions. I like to get people to be critical. I post a daily short Monday through Friday and sometimes on the weekends to get you to think. And for those who followed me for any length of time, I've done this for about 2.5 years on social media before I added a video component. So from 2025 on, so from January on, I've given you my feedback in approximately 1.5 to 2.5 minutes on the questions I'm posing. Take these questions and chew on them. Take them back to your leadership. Take them to your peers. And a lot of them also can be chewed on personally. A motto that I like to share is security starts from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. We live in a digital world where you are going to be challenged. And you're going to see that text message as soon as you roll out of bed. You're going to see that email on your way to office or when you go get lunch. You're going to see that pop up in your browser when you're not paying attention, probably on a Saturday when you're trying to catch up on stuff that you missed during the week, when your guard is likely down. Skyler made a good point earlier. Emotions is what triggers us. I can click on a phishing email because I'm happy. I can click on a phishing email because I'm sad. So what I will challenge you all to think about is a computer only knows a 1 and 0. It's always going to click if it says 0. It's always going to click if it says 1. It's like a light switch. It's either on or it's off. We as humans, we can be partially on, partially off. So again, stop, think, assess, ask for help. Ask the question, as Skyler alluded to. It's easy for us to think we're on an island. No one cares. Someone cares. And if they don't, I care. Reach out to me. I think that's important for anyone to know there's someone in your corner. If you've been in the field for a length of time, you've got someone in your corner. And it's probably a peer, your boss, someone in the other line of business. So with that, I wanted to at least share that with you. Again, for others too who've been paying attention, I post weekly videos on Monday around topics that I find passionate, that people talk, such as Skyler has mentioned. I'd love to know more about that. I put a video together. Colleague asked, I put a video together. I do a short around something very similar. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Skyler and see if she's got anything else she would like to point us to. If you wouldn't mind, if you could subscribe and like, I will appreciate that. But Skyler, any final words before we close out?
Just keep going. Just keep going. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how crappy you think life is. I'm gonna be honest. There have been times where I have been completely beat down, and I didn't think I would ever get to this point in my life. And it works out, but you gotta work for it too. There's a really delicate balance of taking breaks and working as well, and that's why a network really comes in handy, because they can really tell you what you're doing right and what you should be changing. Depending on what they've been through. And it gives you a lot of outside perspective. So don't give up. It's not worth it. You've come this far. I've come this far. I'm not giving up anytime soon. I don't care where I go at this point. I'm excited. And just try to find excitement. It doesn't have to be, solely based on one thing. Make sure it's just on something in life. I mean, just make sure that you always have something that you're working towards. And it doesn't have to be work related. It doesn't have to be related to money. Just make sure that you give yourself time and aspirations that are fun. Don't make it all about seriousness. I made that mistake and I was burnt out like crazy. And now I'm at a point where I feel pretty good because I've found a nice in between. So just keep going. It's tough, but we're going to get through it. And I'm always here if anybody needs to talk. I don't have nearly as much experience as Fletus. Fletus is awesome, though. You should reach out. But I'm always here as someone in your corner if anybody needs, that extra voice to say, yeah, you got this. Like, you got it. Believe in yourself. I know it's cringy and cheesy, but it's true. I only speak the truth. So, but that's about it. Just keep going.
So with that, I'd like to personally thank Skyler for their time tonight. It's been a great conversation. Please like and follow Skyler. And if you think of anything else, comment on a video. We're happy to answer questions. We'll see them. But until next time, please stay safe and stay secure.